Right. So the question is, if the contract is set aside for a small business, do you have to sub it out to a small business, or could you sub it out to a large corporation? Where is the email? Right here we go. Yes. Okay. So the answer is sometimes, and here's why. A small business set aside, a contract that is set aside for a small business, has what's called a size standard on it. The size standard is based on the NAICS code or NAICS code, NIACS code, whatever you want to call it. I just call them NAICS codes. It's based on the NAICS code, and each NAICS code has a size standard. For example, size standard for, let me pull it up real quick. Size standard for NAICS code 562111 is 12.5 million. So if you're a small business, but you did more than $12.5 million last year in revenues, that's gross, not net. You did more than 12.5 million last year in gross revenues, you were not considered a small business under 561211. But if you did 13 million, then you're not a small business under that NAICS code, but you are still a small business under this NAICS codes. And some NAICS codes are not by dollar amount, they're by number of employees. So under environmental remediation, it's 500 employees or less. So you could do $50 gajillion in business, but as long as you never hire more than 500 employees, you're still considered a small business. In this case, in this particular scenario, the small business set aside is 32 million. So her question is, could I sub this contract out to a company that's done more than 32 million in revenues last year when they're not considered a small business, if it's a small business set aside? It depends on the instructions to offer. The instructions to offer will specify if, in fact, they're allowed to sub it out. Some contracts will specify you have to be what's called brick and mortar. So you would have to have a physical location in the area, and you would have to physically do a portion of the work in-house. Some of them specify you can sub out a certain percentage, and some of them don't specify anything, so you can sub the entire contract out. As far as the small business portion, it is based on their revenues, gross revenues. And the other part of the equation is this: if the contract in question is over 650,000, a lot of times these contracts that are over 650,000 will have a clause in the instructions to offer that states that you have to hire 23% small businesses to do subcontract work on that contract, or you could lose the contract. If that's the case, you have to prove that you're hiring small businesses. In that case, the small businesses that you would hire have to have a cage code, because you have to put the amount that you've paid them in a system called the ESRS, Electronic Subcontract Reporting System, to prove that you met that 23% requirement. ESRS, it's on your list of acronyms. If you didn't get the email from me with the list of acronyms, ask me and I can send it to you. So in conclusion, if the contract's over 650,000, we need to check the instructions to offer to see if it states we have to hire small businesses. If so, we're going to have to post them in the ESRS. Therefore, they have to have a cage code, and they have to be a small business. If the instructions to offer does not state that they have to hire 23%, or the contract's under 650,000, then it's based on what the rules are in the instructions to offer. And to put it simply, if in the instructions to offer, the purchasing agent's telling us we need to disclose who our subcontractors are, then more than likely they're going to want to know that they're small businesses. If they don't require us to disclose who our subcontractors are, then you can hire anybody you want. Hire your grandmother for all I care.